This happened about 6 months ago. I had just moved into my cozy apartment in a new city. It felt like a fresh start after a busy past. The place was small, on the 3rd floor of an old brick building, and surrounded by tall trees. I thought it was peaceful. But things quickly changed. On my first rainy night, I settled into bed. The sound of rain was calming. But then I heard a soft tapping against my bedroom window. I figured it was just a branch or raindrops. It didn't seem scary at first. But the tapping got louder. It started to feel frantic. My heart raced, but I pulled the covers up and turned away, hoping it would go away. I remember thinking it was silly to be uneasy about such a small noise. As weeks passed, the tapping turned into whispers. I thought I was imagining it, but I heard my name being called softly. Megan. That echo sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to believe I was just tired. But then it happened again. I listened closely, hoping to hear it again, but sometimes I heard nothing. The silence felt heavy. One night I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. I noticed something behind me. My breath caught in my throat. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. I felt cold sweat break out on my back. Was it just my imagination? I squeezed my eyes shut and held my breath, wishing it all away. Then I heard laughter. It was children's laughter echoing from the hallway. It felt vivid, like they were right outside my door. I peeked out, but the hallway was empty. I felt that knot in my stomach again. The laughter faded just as quickly as it came. I sat on my couch for hours, waiting, listening for anything. It felt wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. That dread came back each night as the rain poured down. I thought I was safe, but something nagged at me. I felt like something was hiding in the dark, waiting for its moment. I was scared, but I also wondered if these experiences were just in my head. One night, the tapping returned. It was louder than before. I felt paralyzed, unsure of what to do. Then I heard that voice again. Megan! My heart raced. I had to look again, but this time nothing jumped out at me. Just silence. The rain continued to fall outside. My thoughts raced. The whispers and laughter danced in my mind. I still don't know if it was just my imagination or something else. Each time it rained, I felt that sense of dread creeping back. I couldn't escape it. I wondered what would happen next. Would I ever feel safe in my own home again? Those nights still trouble me. I woke up to the sound of rain pounding against the window, a familiar noise that had become both comforting and unsettling. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, weighing the growing dread in my stomach against a desire for normalcy. Maybe I was overreacting. I had been in the apartment long enough to face my fears. The tapping had stopped for a week. I hoped it was over. But as I sat up, a series of knocks echoed against the door. They were firm, deliberate. It struck me as odd. I rarely had visitors, especially on a night like this. My heart raced as I swung my legs over the side of the bed. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaky. No answer. The house was silent, apart from the drumming of the rain. After a moment of hesitation, I approached the door. I peered through the peephole, but there was no one there. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the unease. It was probably just the wind. I backed away, intending to crawl back into bed, but then I heard a whisper again. Megan. It was softer than before, almost playful. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. I couldn't tell where it was coming from. Determined to confront whatever was happening, I stepped cautiously into the living room. The space felt colder than usual, a chill that ran through me. I flipped on the lamp, flooding the room with light, craving brightness in the darkness outside. I glanced around, half expecting something to jump out. That's when I noticed the window. It was slightly ajar. I was sure I had locked it after the last storm. A sense of panic washed over me. The wind must have pushed it open, I thought, trying to rationalize it. I moved to close it, but hesitated as I drew closer. A faint figure seemed to flit past the glass, a fleeting shadow that vanished when I blinked. "What is wrong with me?" I whispered to myself. Maybe I was just too tired. Maybe I needed to get out more. I turned to walk away, but then I heard it again. A child's laughter, bright and innocent, but eerily distorted. It came from the hallway again, just like before. Adrenaline pumped through me, curiosity battled with fear. I stepped forward, peering out into the dark corridor, but it was empty. I could feel the urge to turn back, to retreat into the safety of my apartment. But that laughter, it felt like a taunt. "Who's there?" I called out. My voice echoed back, swallowed by the silence. All was still, but my heart continued to race. Just as I decided to retreat, I caught a movement out of the corner of my eye. A flicker of light, a flash of something in my peripheral vision. Suddenly everything went dark. The lights cut out. The only sound was the incessant rain smashing against the roof. My heart raced. I stood frozen for one heart-stopping moment before I stepped back into the darkness of my apartment, desperate to find my phone. As I fumbled around for the flashlight app, a thought struck me. What if whatever was haunting me was here? My breath quickened. Was I truly alone? I barely had time to process the thought before a soft voice broke through the darkness. "Come play with us, Megan." I froze again. That was not my imagination. That was a real voice. My heart pounded louder than the rain as I realized this night was about to unfold into something more terrifying than I ever expected. I stumbled back, heart racing. Thoughts swirled in my mind. Play? With who? I didn't want to find out. My hand grasped my phone as I activated the flashlight app. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the living room in a harsh glow. Everything looked normal, but somehow it felt wrong. The shadows seemed to twist and stretch. I swallowed hard. I was alone, right? I steadied myself, determined to confront whatever was happening. "Show yourself!" I shouted, more bravely than I felt. The silence hung in the air, thick and heavy. Just when I thought my voice had echoed back as a lonely response, I heard it. Soft footsteps padding across the hallway. Was I imagining it? I strained my ears, straining against the sound of the rain. I knew I had heard it. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, like someone was trying to be quiet but couldn't help themselves. My heart threatened to race out of my chest. "Who's there?" I called again, trying to sound commanding. In the dim light, I slowly made my way toward the hallway, the beam from my phone flickering nervously. As I approached the entrance to the hallway, I paused. I saw dim silhouettes on the wall, the larger shadow of an adult and a smaller one beside it. I held my breath, feeling an icy dread wash over me. I didn't want to see what was there. Then, without warning, the lights flickered back on. The sudden brightness stung my eyes. I blinked, trying to adjust. I half expected someone to be standing there, but the hallway remained empty, except for the shadows cast by my light. I hesitated, torn between retreating and investigating. But the whisper came again, more insistent this time. "Megan, come play." I felt an awful urge to move towards it. "No, get away!" I shouted, voice trembling. I turned to leave, racing back to my living room, ready to lock myself away from whatever was haunting me. But as I reached for the door, it swung open on its own. I stepped back, fighting the urge to scream. My heart thudded relentlessly. There, framed in the doorway, was a little girl. She looked genuinely sweet, with pale skin and dark hair. "Why don't you want to play?" she asked, tilting her head. Her voice was sing-songy, but something was wrong. Something felt very off. I don't want to play. You need to leave," I stammered. As those words left my lips, the rain outside intensified, making it hard to hear anything else. Yet, the girl only smiled wider, and in that moment, I noticed her eyes. They weren't just dark. They were hollow, devoid of light, swirling like clouds in a storm. With a flick of my wrist, I shone my flashlight toward her, but it didn't diminish her darkness. Instead, a cold gust of wind howled through the apartment, scattering papers and rattling the window panes. I stepped back again, feeling cornered. Then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, the girl grinned and vanished. I blinked hard, needing to double-check my sanity. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe fatigue was getting to me. But then a soft giggle echoed from the corner of the room. a chorus of children's laughter filling the empty air. They were here. I could feel them. I backed toward the front door, my mind racing. I needed to leave, fast. But would it even matter? I glanced at the clock on the wall. 3 a.m. That's when I saw it. A small, old-fashioned toy doll sitting at the threshold of my now-ajar door. It wasn't there before. My breath caught in my throat. I bent down to pick it up, and that's when I noticed the name stitched into its dress. Megan. The world around me spun as I scrambled to my feet. I didn't want to know what it meant. But in the depths of the looming storm, I understood one thing for sure. Tonight wasn't over yet. I stumbled back into the living room, clutching the doll like a lifeline. My hands trembled, but I couldn't tear my gaze away from its stitched name. Megan. My voice quivered as I whispered it, as if saying it aloud would call something forth. I had to think. I couldn't just stand there. The laughter echoed again, now more pronounced, swirling around me. I felt it in my bones, a haunting reminder of the girl and her hollow eyes. My instincts screamed at me to run, but part of me felt rooted to the ground. The rain hammered against the windows, drowning out every sound except that laughter. I could hear it clearly now, a group of children, their giggles bouncing off the walls like echoes of a forgotten memory. I needed noise. I needed distraction. With shaky hands, I grabbed my phone and opened a white noise app, hoping to drown out the eerie sound swirling through my apartment. As I turned away from the window, the lights flickered again, plunging me into semi-darkness. I gasped, and the laughter ceased suddenly, leaving an unsettling silence in its wake. My heart pounded in my chest. I could feel the air thicken, as if something unseen was closing in around me. Just then, a low, raspy whisper filled my ear. Megan, come play. It was too close. It almost felt like breath on my skin. I whipped around, but nothing was there. Just the shadows in the corners, twisting in the dim light. I backed against the wall, desperately trying to keep my breathing steady. I needed a plan. I thought about the door. Maybe if I got outside, I could escape whatever was happening. But the thought of opening that door, facing whatever was lurking on the other side, felt worse than staying. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the hallway, like something had fallen. My heart raced again, but I forced myself to move forward, gripping the flashlight tightly. I peered into the darkness of the hallway, the beam slicing through the shadows. What met my eyes made my stomach drop. The doll. It was now at the end of the hallway, sitting upright, facing me with that same stitched smile. I had just been holding it in my hands. How could it be back there? Don't play with it, Megan, a voice said behind me, this one higher and filled with a tinkling laughter. My heart fell into my stomach. I whipped around again, but the living room was empty. The air felt colder. Panic set in. I didn't want to be there anymore. I dashed toward the front door, my mind racing. I could almost convince myself my thoughts were irrational. I could almost tell myself to breathe. But I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching me, waiting for me to make a mistake. That's when I saw it. A blurry shadow darting past the hallway. It moved quickly, almost inhuman. The laughter returned, now a chorus of sing-song voices urging me to follow. Come play with us, Megan. It's fun. I hesitated, shaken to the core. I had to make a choice. Either face whatever waited at the end of the hall or stay here, trapped in the heavy silence of my own home. The thought of turning around made my skin crawl, but the idea of staying felt just as suffocating. As I took a step back, the lights flickered once more and then everything went dark. I blinked, trying to adjust to the sudden darkness. My heart pounded in my chest, reverberating in my ears. I fumbled for the flashlight in my pocket, turning it on again. The beam cut through the shadows, revealing the same empty hallway, the doll still waiting at the end, unmoving. The laughter had faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and quick. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I felt the weight of something unexplainable pressing against my skin, urging me to move. And then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement again. A figure, small and indistinct, darted behind a door frame further down the hall. My breath hitched. Hello, I called out, my voice wavering with uncertainty. Silence swallowed my words. I took a step forward, my feet heavy as if they were encased in concrete. Each step felt like an invitation to whatever was hiding, but I couldn't just stand there. I needed to know what was happening. "Come out," I shouted, though it sounded feeble even to me. No answer. Just the whisper of the wind rattling the windows. I turned back to the living room, the relative safety of my home feeling like a trap. I focused on the doll again, the way it sat, so still, so defiant. I couldn't shake the feeling that it held the answer to everything. Why was it here? Why was it alive? I only wanted to get rid of it, to escape whatever connection I had to it. But as if sensing my resolve, the doll's smile seemed to widen, pulling at the edges of my sanity. I turned back, deciding to confront whatever lurked in the hall. I reached the door to the small room beside the hallway. With trembling hands, I pushed it open, the creaking echoing like a scream in the air. Inside was just a storage space cluttered with boxes, a dusty old lamp flickering to life at my intrusion. But something caught my eye. A journal lay on the ground, pages marked and scattered. I knelt down, my pulse racing as I picked it up. The cover was worn, but the name on it sent chills down my spine. Megan. I flipped through the pages, and my blood ran cold. Sketches of the doll were scattered on every page, alongside notes scrawled in a child's frantic handwriting. "She loves to play. Megan is my best friend. Don't let her catch you." My breath hitched. Who was this child? Why did they refer to the doll like that? The last page listed a date, today. I felt the urge to drop the journal, but I couldn't. What had they seen? What had they written here? Before I could contemplate what to do next, a loud thud came from behind me. I shot up, the journal slipping from my fingers and falling to the floor. My heart stopped. My flashlight flickered, and then went out entirely, plunging me into pitch black. In that moment of darkness, I heard the laughter again, a cacophony swirling around me, each giggle laced with malice. My pulse quickened. Someone was in the house. I wasn't alone anymore. And then I felt it. A small hand grasped my wrist, pulling me backward into the shadows. I stumbled, the cold grip tightening around my wrist. I whipped around, desperate to see whatever had pulled me into the darkness, but there was nothing. No one. Just the empty hallway surrounding me, shadows shifting like phantoms. "Let go," I shouted, tugging my arm free. The laughter echoed again, echoing off the walls, dancing in the corners of my mind. Fear gnawed at my insides. Was I imagining this? I was starting to feel like I was losing my grip on reality. I fumbled for my flashlight, the absence of light making me feel exposed, vulnerable. My fingers brushed against the cold metal of the flashlight as I switched it back on. The beam flickered to life, illuminating the hallway in front of me. The doll was still there, the grin more sinister now as if it had heard everything. I looked back toward the doorframe where I saw the movement before. There was no sign of anyone, just the silence wrapping around me again like a dense fog. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my fraying nerves. I needed to get out of this hallway, out of this house, but somehow my feet did not cooperate. Then I noticed something strange. A faint glow flickered from the corner of the living room. I didn't remember leaving anything on. My heart raced as I approached the glow, each step weighted with dread. As I entered the room, I discovered my laptop open, the screen lit with a bright, unfamiliar page. The cursor blinked. I hadn't even turned it on. This was starting to feel like a sick joke. I stepped closer, the details of the page coming into focus. An empty chat room filled with messages. "Megan is here. She found you. You can't escape." I felt a cold shiver creep down my spine. Who were these people? What did they want? I couldn't shake off the feeling that Megan was somehow tied to all of this. I glanced around, seeking an explanation, but the laptop screen filled my vision, a digital prison. Then my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, making me jump. I yanked it out. There was a flood of notifications, all from an unknown number. Just 3 words repeated over and over. "She wants you." Panic bubbled inside me. Who was she? I turned back toward the hallway looking for a way out. My thoughts raced, each possibility worse than the last. The laughter echoed again, this time louder, swelling like a storm gathering strength, pushing me toward the dark corner. "Stay away from me!" I yelled, the words bursting out of me like a desperate plea. And then I heard it, a childlike response in the darkness, soft and sweet. "Why would I? You're my friend." The shadows shifted, and I realized the doll's smile had transformed. It was alive, twisting into something far more sinister, ready to play in ways I could never imagine. Then came the sound of light footsteps, a soft patter followed by the creak of the floorboards beneath a tiny weight. My heart raced. I needed to escape, and fast. With one last glance at the doll, I lunged toward the front door, determined to put as much distance between me and whatever was haunting me. But the door slammed shut before I reached it. Something held it shut from the other side, something that fed on my fear. And then a voice chimed from behind me again, low and haunting. "You can't leave, not until you play." I pressed myself against the door, my breath quick and ragged. My mind raced. I had to find a way out. But something in the darkness felt heavy, alive. The laughter echoed again, a creeping sound that brushed against my skin like ice. I turned back to the room. The glow from the laptop seemed brighter now, beckoning me. I knew I should ignore it, but curiosity clawed at me. I moved closer, the flickering screen illuminating my anxious face. The messages on the screen were still there, but now new ones appeared. "We're here," they read. "We want to play." I felt nausea wash over me. The little footsteps grew louder, drawing closer. I glanced over my shoulder. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and elongating into grotesque shapes. Was I dreaming? I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of fear clouding my thoughts. Suddenly, I heard a giggle, sweet yet filled with malice. I spun around again, ready to confront whatever was lurking behind me. But I found nothing, just silence. I reached for my phone. Maybe I could call for help, but the screen was dark, no service. Panic hit me like a wave. I was trapped, with no one to help. Another laugh rang out, even closer now. "Play with me," it chimed, high-pitched and playful. It felt like a command and an invitation all at once. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get somewhere safe. With resolve, I resumed my charge toward the front door. I pulled it with all my strength, but it wouldn't budge. My emerging desperation turned into anger. "Let me out," I shouted, beating my fists against the wood. The laughter grew into contagious glee. "You have to play first, just for a little while." I stepped back, fear flooding my veins. "Play what?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" A silence fell over the room. Then the doll's head tilted slightly, its eyes boring into me, and everything felt still. I waited for an answer, but instead, the lights flickered. The room was cloaked in chaotic flashes. That's when I saw it. The doll was no longer in its corner. It was standing, its porcelain skin almost glowing in the sporadic light. For a moment it seemed to sway, a chilling mockery of a child's dance. I stumbled back, adrenaline surging through me. The computer screen reflected its wicked smile. "You'll play, whether you want to or not," it hissed. The last words twisted and choked in the air, almost genuine in its childlike enthusiasm. Then, without warning, everything went dark. I felt a rush of cold air sweep through the room, and I stumbled back, falling onto the floor. The shadows closed in on me as I scrambled to my feet, desperately searching for a way out. Just then, I heard a whisper, so soft it almost seemed like a breeze. "You can't hide." I realized I needed a plan. I had to outsmart whatever was haunting this house. With the darkness closing in, I took a deep breath and focused. My survival depended on it. I stood in the dark, my heart racing, straining to see through the shadows. The only sound I could hear was my own breathing. Where had the doll gone? My mind swirled with thoughts of escape, but also confusion. I needed to know what was happening. As I scanned the room, I noticed the flicker of light that wasn't coming from the laptop. It emanated from the corner where I had last seen the doll. Fear wrapped around my throat, but I steeled myself. I had to know. I took a hesitant step forward. My feet felt heavy. the floorboards creaking beneath me. The closer I got, the more the shadows seemed to coil around me, wrapping me in a claustrophobic embrace. There was no sign of the doll, but something on the floor caught my eye. It was a small, worn-out toy, an old jack-in-the-box. I bent down to pick it up. The metal was cold, and the handle was slightly rusty. I could almost hear music playing in my mind, something unsettling and familiar. Where did this come from? I murmured to myself, half hoping for an answer. I didn't remember it being in the room before. Then I heard it again, a soft giggle, now right next to me. I spun around, instincts kicking in. My breath hitched in my throat. There in the dark, I saw a figure. Just a glimpse, but enough to know it was small and hunched, very much like the doll. "Play with me," it whispered, the voice chilling my skin. I fought the urge to scream. Instead, I clutched the toy and backed away slowly. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely audible. The laughter pierced through the stillness. It echoed like a taunt, growing louder and more joyful. "You have to turn the handle." Panic bubbled up. I didn't want to play, certainly not with whatever that was, but it felt as if I had no choice. The handle of the toy felt almost magnetic in my grip. Against my better judgment, I started to turn it. Pop! The lid flew open, and the tune began to play. A warped melody filled the room, sending cold shivers through me. But as the notes danced in the air, so did the shadows. They twisted and swirled, morphing into shapes that weren't quite human, their edges flickering with life. Suddenly the temperature dropped sharply. I could see my breath. The laughter intensified, now sounding more like a chorus. Then I caught sight of them, dark figures emerging from the walls, surrounding me. They wore distorted faces, smeared with glee and mischief, their eyes glimmering with an insatiable hunger. I was paralyzed by fear. I fumbled with the jack-in-the-box trying to shut it, but it wouldn't close. The laughter crescendoed, and all I could think was to escape. Then, in that overwhelming moment, a curious thought flashed through my mind. What if I didn't play alone? I needed to reach out, to find something, someone, anything that could break this hold. As I grasped onto this fragile idea, I held the toy tightly and shouted, "I'm not playing alone. You have to play with me too." The laughter stopped, the air grew still, and for a brief second, a stillness took hold. But then, the ground trembled beneath me. A loud crash echoed from upstairs, shattering the silence like glass. Something was not done with me yet. I turned to face the staircase, my heart pounding in my ears. Whatever was up there felt more threatening than what was surrounding me. I had to move. Choosing between the laughter and the crashing, I took a tentative step toward the stairs, feeling both the pressure of the darkness and the challenge ahead. Would I find safety, or something worse? I hesitated for just a moment, weighing my options. The laughter still echoed behind me, but the crash from upstairs demanded my attention. I gripped the jack-in-the-box tighter as I ascended the stairs, my legs trembling with each step. The air felt thick and oppressive. Shadows loomed, stretching unnaturally along the walls. I flicked on the hallway light, and it flickered once before stabilizing. The harsh light cast long shadows, but I breathed a little easier. I didn't want to think about what might be up there. But the crashing noise had been violent, urgent. I moved past the bathroom and pushed open the door to my bedroom. The sight that greeted me sent a chill down my spine. Furniture lay strewn across the floor as if something had ransacked the room. My bed was overturned, pillows and blankets scattered like debris from a storm. My heart raced again. What had forced this chaos? The window was securely shut, though rain pattered relentlessly against the glass. Then I heard it. A soft thud coming from the closet. The kind of sound that made my stomach twist. I approached cautiously, every nerve in my body screaming at me to back away. But I had come this far. I had to know what was inside. I reached for the closet door, feeling my palms sweat against the cold metal handle. As I pulled it open, it creaked loudly, and I held my breath. The darkness inside felt alive, electric. Suddenly, a tiny figure darted out. I jumped back, barely catching a glimpse of it. Something small and quick disappeared behind my bed. Panic gripped me, but I fought it down. Was it the same doll? Or had it found a different form? "Show yourself," I called out, my voice shaky. For a moment silence enveloped the room. Then I saw the flash of something, a blue dress disappearing behind the dresser. My heart pounded. I needed to confront whatever this was. I stepped forward, making sure to keep my distance from the dresser. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted again, trying to sound braver than I felt. A giggle echoed back, a sound more mischievous than innocent. The noise mingled with the rhythmic patter of rain, creating an eerie symphony. "Play with us," it sang back, the childish voice mocking me. "Who are you?" I demanded, feeling foolish for yelling at a voice belonging to something I couldn't even see. Then I spotted it, a flash of porcelain, a small doll face peeking out from beneath the dresser. This was the same doll I had seen before. Its big eyes reflected the light as it smiled, a crooked smile that sent chills down my spine. But there was a difference. It looked like it had aged, its features warped and twisted. As I crouched down, the air thickened, and the laughter returned, echoing throughout the room. I could feel the shadows creeping closer, closing in around me. The realization hit me. This wasn't just an innocent game. Something darker was at play. Before I could react, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang, trapping me inside. Panic surged within me. I turned to look back at the closet, but it was too late. The shadows had begun to stretch, reaching toward me with icy fingers, and then everything went dark. The darkness swallowed me whole, wrapping around me like a shroud. My breath came in frantic gasps, the sound of my own heart pounding echoing in the abyss. I stumbled backward, feeling my way along the walls, desperate for any hint of light. I had no idea how long I lingered in that black void, but I could feel the coldness clawing at my skin, whispering sweet, menacing promises in childlike tones. "Play with us," the voices urged, thin and skeletal, echoing all around me. I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing I could unhear them, unfeel this dread. I gripped the jack-in-the-box tightly, willing it to offer me a surge of courage, something to banish the shadows. Suddenly a flicker, a flash of light illuminated the space, revealing the chaotic remnants of my apartment, the walls warped and shifting, as if the very structure was alive. I glimpsed a small figure darting just out of reach, laughing as it scampered away. The sound tugged at my sanity, a lure pulling me deeper. "Where are you?" I shouted, my voice breaking. But the laughter only grew louder, more infectious, spinning around me like a twisted carousel. Driven by terror and the need to escape, I rushed toward the closet door, throwing it open again. My heart raced at what I might find, but this time I was ready. I would not let the shadows envelop me. I would not be their toy. What met my gaze this time wasn't just the doll, but a horde of small figures. Children, their faces obscured, but their giggles sharp and clear. They swirled around the closet like a whirlwind, beckoning me to join, urging me to come and play. "No, I won't play!" I screamed, my voice cutting through the cacophony. But the children and the doll remained relentless, the pull stronger than I could control. Just then, the loud crash returned, shaking the floor beneath me. It seemed to spurn the children into a frenzy, laughter shifting to screams of delight. The dresser toppled over behind me, revealing an opening I hadn't noticed before, a narrow passage shrouded in shadows that beckoned me forth. Taking a deep breath, I dove into the passage, driven more by instinct than reason. The laughter faded slightly behind me, muffled by the wall separating us, but I could still feel their presence, a dark cloud hovering just out of sight. I crawled through the narrow space, my body scraping against the rough edges. As I pushed onward, the shadows pulsed. I could feel something behind me, chasing me through the darkness. "You can't escape," echoed behind me, the voices rising up in a furious chorus. At that moment, I spotted a flicker of light up ahead, a tiny pinhole that seemed to expand as I crawled closer. Hope surged within me, fueling my determination. I raced toward it as quickly as I could, the whispers growing louder, colder around me. "I'm not playing," I shouted again, my voice hoarse, but the laughter shifted to something more like a growl, the sound of frustration and anger. With a final burst of speed, I reached the pinhole and lunged through it. Just as I crossed into the light, a strong force slammed into me, propelling me into an open room. I hit the floor hard, rolling and scrambling to my feet. I was in my living room again, but it looked different. The colors were sharper, the edges of the furniture almost painfully distinct. I spun around, searching for the source of the haunting giggles, but found only myself, alone. The rain continued to hammer against the window, but the laughter was gone. Breathing heavily, I staggered to my feet. The doll lay on the floor, a chilling remnant of the night's horror, its smile as twisted as ever. I picked it up carefully, and for the first time, I felt a pang of sadness. Was it just a doll, or a conduit for something darker? I made my way to the front door, determined to leave. Unlocking it, I took one last look around the apartment, my apartment. My heart ached, pounding against my chest as I opened the door to face whatever awaited me beyond. I stepped into the rain, the cool droplets awakening me from the nightmare. I didn't look back. I still had no answers for what had transpired, the meaning behind the laughter, the shadows, or the doll, nor did I know if they would ever truly leave me alone. But for now, I was out. I had escaped the claustrophobic grips of whatever haunted me. I moved to a different neighborhood soon after, convinced it was for the best. Sometimes in the rain's gentle rhythmic patter, I think I hear them still. The faint echoes of laughter, soft whispers of children playing somewhere just beyond the veil of normalcy. But I choose to ignore them. After all, in the corners of our minds, some games are better left unplayed.